UFC 299 was insane. We had incredible fights from start to finish. Starting off in the early prelims, Robelis Despaigne making his UFC debut with the 18-second knockout over Josh Parisian. The 6'7" Cuban heavyweight is an absolute freak with death touch power. He is now 5-0, 5 first-round knockouts, 4 of which have come in under 20 seconds. This is a guy who can be a real dangerous proposition in the heavyweight division and someone who could be in the top 5, top 7 in 12 months from now. We then had Michel Pereira with another first-round finish. He's now won 7 in a row. The Brazilian middleweight is really fun to watch. He's always dangerous on the feet, showing off the submission skills here over Michel Oleksiejczuk. This is a guy who can slowly but surely become a fan favorite in middleweight, and I'm really excited to see what Michel Pereira has in store for the rest of 2024. Another one to look out for, Kyler the Matrix Phillips with a phenomenal performance, a breakout performance over Pedro Munoz. He hurt him bad on the feet. He had fun spinning attacks, hard flying knees, really solid boxing combinations. A guy who's predominantly a jiu-jitsu artist, but a dude who came in and looked elite on the feet. Kyler Phillips went from prospect to top contender in my opinion, and a really fun guy to look out for in the bantamweight division. The final prelim I'll mention, Curtis Razor Blaydes making Jailton Almeida look sort of like a fraud. He had a bunch of mat return takedowns in the first round, but then Jailton came out in the second, shot for a desperation takedown, and Curtis just pounded on him with hammer fists, and Jailton really gave up. So good win for Curtis Blaydes there to get back on track. The main card opener was phenomenal. Petr Yan, Song Yadong, two of the best in the business at bantamweight. Song Yadong actually won the first round and the beginning of the second round, but Petr Yan came out there, veteran, experienced, and won the end of the second round, dominated the third round, and won a convincing 29-28 unanimous decision. Great win there by Petr. Michael Venom Page, the former Bellator welterweight, made his UFC debut and made it look quite easy against Kevin Holland. Smooth sailing in the first and third round, exploding in and out of range with hard shots, the spinning elbow, some body kicks. He is the British Wonder Boy, and I'm glad we have him in the UFC. Fun performance there from Michael Venom Page. The co-main event between Benoit Saint-Denis and Dustin Poirier was absolutely electric as we anticipated. Benoit looked good early, but then Dustin got it done there in the third round via KO. Benoit should not have been striking with Dustin. He's a phenomenal grappler, but he's too reckless on the feet, and in the end, it hurt him real bad. Dustin with a massive knockout there to get back on track after the Gaethje loss. Now, Jack Della Maddalena and Sugar Sean O'Malley I really want to talk about, so let's get into Jack Della Maddalena. That performance really stood out to me. Nobody finishes Gilbert Burns. Not even Hamzat Chimaev could finish Gilbert Burns, and Jack Della Maddalena, lethal on the feet, got it done, and we just found out he did so with a broken arm. The dude is an absolute dog. He's as good as it comes on the feet. His boxing skills are absolutely elite. He's got a ridiculous chin. Everything about Jack Della Maddalena on the feet screams future champion. I would love to see a fight with Leon Edwards in the future. That would be a phenomenal striker's affair. He's been an absolute killer ever since he came into the UFC. The Contender Series win over Ange Lusa, came in as an underdog and beat the brakes off of Lusa for all 3 rounds. The Pete Rodriguez UFC debut, Amiv, the body shot TKO, then made easy work of Danny Roberts. The knockout or the submission over Rude Boy Randy Brown in Perth, Australia, Basil Hafez, Kevin Holland, Gilbert Burns, the list goes on. And he called out Shavkat for probably like the 3rd time, but people are finally noticing. This would be a phenomenal fight. Jack moves up from 11 after beating Gilbert, who was 4. He goes from 11 to 5, and of course Shavkat's at 3. This would be an electric fight. I'd love this fight. Title eliminator, winner gets Leon Edwards. Now, if we look at this fight stylistically, the first question you'll have, Jack Della, takedown defense and ground control. You'd expect Shavkat to want to grapple, especially if Jack's able to hurt him on the feet. Now, Shavkat is as good as they come, right? He's an elite welterweight. He's obviously a potential future champion. So you'd expect him to be able to get Jack to the ground a few times. But we did see Jack in the 3rd round, when most people would quit, give up, not have the energy to hip escape, get out of those bad positions against Gilbert Burns. He was able to get back up on the feet and finish the fight shortly thereafter. We saw him get controlled a bit against Amiv, and then 30 seconds later, TKO to the body. We saw him get controlled and taken down by Basil Hafez, but then again, that was 2 weight cuts in 1 week, so that fight really doesn't count, and he still won that fight. Now, Craig Jones, the Australian Jiu-Jitsu competitor who's phenomenal, has said Jack's Jiu-Jitsu is very good, so if that means Jack has pretty solid scrambles, he can threaten different things, hip escapes, Kimuras, etc., then that's good news for Jack. I do think Shavkat is able to control him and take him down a bit, but I also think Jack is able to get back to his feet and really make this a dogfight, which would, I think definitely go in his favor if he can turn this into a dogfight. Now, the second thing I'm looking at is if Jack can attack the body. If he can dig the body, that would affect Shavkat's movement. It would hurt his endurance, his durability, his stamina, because people can take shots to the chin all day if they're ultra tough like Shavkat, but if you start to work that body and soften up that body's going to shut off and you don't have anything to say about it. So if Jack can really work the body, that'll obviously have Shavkat dipping his elbow and lowering his guard. Then Jack can come up top and really hurt him to the head. Now, the third element of this fight would be the range and movement. Jack Della Maddalena has phenomenal range, distance management, and his movement's insane. He has beautiful feints, a great jab, and he switches stances effortlessly into different shots, which is beautiful. He'll go from southpaw and then right into orthodox, vice versa, and attack boxing combinations from there, which is really, really elite level striking. And he uses his jab as a rangefinder, manage his distance, find his range, and then he'll explode with that left cross or right cross, depending on what position he's in. Now, Shavkat is a little bit liable on the feet. He has that chin wide open, his head's on the center line, he doesn't really have great head movement, and we saw Jeff Neal hurt him bad. So if Jack can float in and out of range like he did in his debut and other fights and just hit him hard with jabs, hooks to the body, and then end up hitting him with a straight right or a left cross, that could be the beginning of the end for Shavkat. And I do think in the end, I am a massive Jack Della Maddalena fan, but I think in the end, Jack can get it done here. This would be a very, very tight fight, a close fight. This is obviously the biggest test of Jack Della Maddalena's career, should this fight happen. But I do have confidence in Jack Della Maddalena. I think he's an absolute dog. I think he is as good as they come on the feet. His boxing skills are elite, so I think future welterweight champion Jack Della Maddalena can definitely beat Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, the man of the hour from UFC 299, Sean O'Malley, looked absolutely incredible. The best we've ever seen him. Yes, he didn't get the finish, but 50-44, 50-45. He brutalized Marlon Chito Vera for all 5 rounds. You gotta give it up to Chito too, man. I mean, the toughness, that's otherworldly toughness. The chin, it's like Marvin Vettori granite chin level from Chito Vera. Dude ate every single shot that came his way, never even blinked. And Sean O'Malley, like I mentioned, best performance I think we've seen today. Yes, he got the finish against Aljo, but pure dominance for 5 rounds. There's something to say about that. So Sean O'Malley defends his belt, his bantamweight belt, for the first time. You'd think Merab would be a great fight for him as his next defense. The number 1 contender, he looked great against Henry Cejudo. But Sean O'Malley did call out the featherweight champion, Ilia El Matador Topuria, and I think that would be a really, really exciting fight. Merab makes more sense, totally, and that's probably what will happen, but I like the idea of an Ilia-Sean O'Malley fight. And considering, this is the new generation at featherweight now with Ilia Topuria and Sean O'Malley at bantamweight, if we look at this fight in Spain, it would be absolutely massive. At the Santiago Bernabeu Real Madrid Stadium for football, soccer fans, we know how big of a deal that would be. That would be probably one of the biggest UFC events ever, lining up with the massive crowds in Australia for Whittaker Izzy 1. And I really like this fight actually for Ilia. Now, if we look at it stylistically, both of these dudes are going to strike, but I think a big difference maker here is Ilia's elite power. We've seen it on full display throughout his entire UFC career. We just saw it against Alexander Volkanovski. We saw it in brutal fashion too against Jai Herbert in London. And if you remember closely, he got hurt with a head kick that fight. This was a lightweight. He had like a 12-inch reach discrepancy, and he put him out absolutely cold. He ate a shot and then gave him a brutal right hand that put him to sleep immediately before he even hit the canvas. We saw him brutalize Damon Jackson's body and then hit him with, again, another right overhand right and put him to sleep. So a dude just with really, really scary power at all times. He's not as fluid and diverse as O'Malley with his attacks. He doesn't switch stances. He's very, very happy with his orthodox striking attack. But when he lands from orthodox, man, that shit is deadly. His overhand right, his left hook, his jab, everything can put you down. We saw it against Josh Emmett. He had a 50-42 scorecard against Josh Emmett. That's a 10-7 round. That's absolutely brutal. No one, I don't think we've ever seen in recent memory a 50-42. That is dominance personified. Another reason why I think Ilia can get it done is he can mix it up. He can grapple. He's coming from a Greco-Roman base in MMA. He's coming from the country of Georgia. We know those dudes can grapple. We've seen it with Merab Dvalishvili. We saw Ilia get it done on the ground in his debut against Yusuf Zalal. We saw him on the big stage against Bryce Mitchell, making him tap from a head and arm triangle. We saw him mix in his takedowns against Josh Emmett. We saw him brutalize the jiu-jitsu wizard Ryan Hall with some hammer fists. He looked really patient in that fight, and then when he got it to the ground in a place where he was comfortable, the hammer fists and the shots to put Ryan Hall to sleep. So this is a dude who, yes, has tons of power on the feet, but if he needs to, he can go to the ground. Grappling is his first art, and a guy like Sean O'Malley, who's really, really good on the feet, if Ilia doesn't like the reads he's getting on the feet, I think a really wise move here would be to mix it up, grapple, steal some rounds, tire out Sean O'Malley, and then brutalize him on the feet as well. Now, the third thing to consider with Ilia, his determination, his hunger, his will, and desire to win. Like, the mentality of fighting, this is so overlooked, but it's so massive. We've seen it at the middleweight division with Dricus du Plessis. Dricus du Plessis is 10% the talent of Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is way more talented than Dricus, but it just shows you how powerful the mind is. Dricus was able to win a UFC title, a UFC championship, basically with just his desire and his hunger and his determination. And sure, Sean Strickland isn't the most legitimate middleweight champion, okay, fine, but he did look great against Izzy. Anyways, that's not the point. Ilia's determination, his mentality, I mean, it's second to none, and I think it, obviously it's the reason he won the title with his skill, but I think in a fight with Sean O'Malley, his hunger and determination is going to be too much, especially if this fight is in Spain. And you have to think also, there's a multitude of other reasons why Ilia can win here, strength being one of them, right? He's coming up, Sean O'Malley would be coming up a weight class, Ilia would be more comfortable, obviously, at featherweight than Sean, so I really think this fight, Ilia would finish him inside 3 rounds, and I would absolutely love to see this fight. I think it would be really, really entertaining on both sides. A striker's affair, most likely, but Ilia, of course, can mix it up. So Ilia Topuria here, I'm confident he gets it done, and I'm going to say by 3rd round knockout, we know how devastating his power can be. Okay, last thing on the docket, I'll talk about the fighters I mentioned before. I'm going to matchmake them. So we started off here with Robelis Despaigne. I think a good fight for him would be Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He loves to stand and trade and get in wars on the feet, but he's also a grappler who's, willing to trade and throw absolute bombs, but he's also willing to take you down and try and submit you or ground and pound you. So this would be a good test to see how Robelis' takedown defense is looking, and also would provide him the opportunity to get in a nice striker's affair with a fun heavyweight who likes to brawl. Now, the second guy on our list was Michel Pereira. I think a fight with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez would be really fun. Both of these dudes like to trade. Fluffy's more the grappler, and this would test Michel's grappling skills, but would also, again, like the Robelis fight, give Michel the opportunity to strike. So that would be a really fun fight, Fluffy versus Michel. The third one on the docket, Kyler Phillips. I think a fun fight for Kyler Phillips would be Jonathan Martinez. He looked phenomenal last time out against Adrian Yanez, and both of these dudes would throw down. It'd be a very technical strikers fight, probably some grappling, but a lot of striking here, and I think that Jonathan Martinez's kicking game would cause some problems for Kyler, and Kyler's grappling would cause some problems from J-Mart. So this would be a really fun fight to see. Curtis Blaydes, now he has a bunch of fights that would be interesting. I don't think any top 5 fights other than Cyril Gane. I think Cyril does whatever he wants to him on the feet, but obviously he could take down Cyril. Alexander Romanov if he wants to go down the rankings, and then Sergey Spivak after Spivak's win over Derek Lewis. That would be an interesting fight. The next one, Petr Yan. Now he has some options here too. I think a good fight would be former flyweight champ Davison Figueiredo. He looked really good against Rob Font, and we know the power that Figgy possesses and the boxing skills and striking skills that Petr Yan has. I think that would be a really, really fun fight. If Davison can't fight against Petr, and maybe Petr doesn't want to fight Davison, I think Cheeto would be an interesting fight if Cheeto recovers in the next, let's say, 6 months. I think Petr would beat Cheeto quite comfortably, but then again, you never know. You can never count out Cheeto Vera. We know his toughness is elite. We just saw it. I mean, just a brutal beating he took, but he's always in it, so that would be a fun fight. Michael Venom Page, I think this is a very easy one. I think most people would guess. MVP versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I mean, both of these dudes share very similar skill sets, very creative, fluid, flowy strikers, and I think these dudes would put on an absolute showcase on the feet. I don't think we'd see much grappling, if any, in this fight. I think we'd see a lot of fun, creative, exciting striking. So that would be maybe one of my top fights of the year if we could get Wonderboy versus MVP Michael Venom Page. And if we can't do MVP versus Wonderboy, Rude Boy Randy Brown versus MVP would be a really fun fight. We just saw Rude Boy knock out Muslim Salikov, and he's a very long-range striker for the welterweight division, so that would be a fun test for MVP Randy Rude Boy Brown. Now, Dustin Poirier, I don't really know how we can matchmake him considering the state of the lightweight division. We have basically all the top dudes booked. Charles versus Armin, Justin versus Max for the BMF. Now, Islam isn't booked, but I don't think you give DP Islam right away. I don't think you give DP Beneil Dariush after his, two recent losses. I don't think he wants to fight someone on a losing streak. Michael Chandler held up with Connor, and then Fiziev is injured. I don't think he wants to fight Hooker again. Jalen Turner's booked with Hanato Moicano. So who does Dustin Poirier fight? Maybe Colby Covington. I'm not a fan of Colby, but I'd like to see Dustin beat his ass. That would be interesting. The Dustin one is very tricky, so we shall see. Maybe Dustin gets a title shot, maybe he doesn't. I think Dustin versus Colby at 170, he wouldn't have to cut weight or as much weight. That's a solid option. So those are some matchmaking options there. I hope you've enjoyed the video. And if you want more niche MMA content, I know this wasn't too niche, but if you want more fun MMA content, please give me a comment, basically what you want to see content-wise, and I'd be happy to look into it. All right, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.